What series that?
Either that or maybe
Sorry, I didn't know it was me.
Worth it. So we did sandals, Jimmy went to White House.
I'd like to recognize that we are behind our start time. We're having some issues with technology that we're still trying to fix for those who are participating remotely. So we're going to let them, thank you for your patience. We're going to let them work on that a little longer.
It's been a lot. Yes. But it was.
So I've used grabbing. You're a lawyer.
So you'll come back. You don't have to worry about.
She said, but this was your instinct. We're looking. It's changed. Kind of last
Yes.
Spencer.
Yeah. Yeah, those are some areas that we have some friends of ours who want a couple of acres and they want to start their own homestead. So they're trying to concentrate around the Indianapolis area and they learn very quickly you can't. Like you have to go out. You want to get land.
All right, I might need to look at your staff report slide at some point because all my notes are on my computer.
They said that too.
And we would be right on it within an hour or two. At least some of the side team comes in and just.
It'll be fine. It's fine.
They said our friends said
No, it's
big.
But is that enough? You need to see it typical. I mean, that might work actually if you're seeing it presented.
They wanted 199.
Uh-huh.
I think that would be my
We had it all set up. Hey, Friday morning, somebody out of Indy just.
That's gross.
As long as it doesn't indicate that he doesn't sign at all.
You're so close.
All right.
Register now says she's gonna start now on saying that we're gonna put in. That way.
It'll be fine. Everything's
So no one can do that.
And then she'll.
That's smart.
Andrew hasn't indicated he doesn't want to be on plan anymore, has he?
Well, I don't know what happened to them. They just took off and never did.
No. Not that I've been told. Okay.
Someplace else.
Not
Sure,
that,
sure.
no, they're aware of the system. Are we ready?
System hasn't been working for us.
No.
Yes. Yep. Let them off.
Yeah. We've got it fixed the best that we can, so
That's
we're gonna
exciting.
admit people in, we'll be ready to roll.
Through
Yep.
the pandemic.
Thank you all for your patience. We do have a number of items on our agenda, so we'll get started, noting that we're a little bit late. And thank you on the Zoom for your patience and accommodation with the view. We'll begin with Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Would you call roll?
Matt Doublestein,
Present.
Andrew McGee, Lauren Foley,
Present.
Sarah Ford, present, Steve Milstead,
Present.
Danny Powers,
Here.
Dave Taylor.
Here. And since it is our first meeting of the year, we need to elect officers. Is there a nomination?
I nominate Matt Doublestein to remain as president and Andrew McGee vice president. Can I do them both in one? Okay.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, it's up to the board if you want to handle them one at a time or together, that's fine.
Are there any objections? We vote on that?
Yes, please.
All right, so we'll call for a vote. All in favor of
Need a
that?
second, I think. You need a second.
I'll second that.
Okay. Motion is second. All in favor signify with aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that passes. Congratulations. Andrew, we'll let you know when you get here. Next in under agenda, is there a motion regarding the minutes from December 13th meeting?
I make a motion to approve the minutes from the December 13th, 2021 Plan Commission meeting.
I'll second.
There is a motion and a second. Anything to discuss? All in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. With respect to tonight's agenda, there has been a recommendation from staff to continue item F, the development plan for All Points Anson Building 10. Is there a motion on that or on anything else related to the agenda tonight?
I make a motion to continue item PC 21-063-DP Development Plan, All Points Anson Building 10 until the next meeting.
Second.
There's a motion, a second. All in favor, signify with aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That carries. Anything further on the agenda?
Mr. President, just one kind of procedural issue. 6A, the zoning amendment to Peabody PUD, more bragging on staff. They discovered that there was a little bit of a hiccup in notices. All the notices were sent out as required by our rules. One of them went to a prior owner because of mail forwarding through the Postal Service, but the petitioner has corrected that by letting the owner that is there now know directly. So we've been resolved on that, but just for the record, that notice issue was corrected.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to combine item C and D tonight, PC 21-060 CP Concept Plan Park 130, Building 6, and PC 21-061-DP Development Plan Park 130, Building 6.
I'll second.
Motion is second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, so our agenda remains for new business, 6A, 6B combined, 6C and D, and then 6E. F has been continued, and then items G and H. Anything further on the agenda? All right. Were there any requests to speak on non-agenda items? Seeing none, and with no presentations or unfinished business indicated, we move to new business. Our first item up tonight. It's item A, PC 21-029ZA, zoning amendment, Peabody PUD. Is the petitioner ready?
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the commission. Pleasure to be before you tonight. My name is Matt Price. I'm an attorney with Denton's, an address of 10 West Market Street in Indianapolis, Indiana. And I'm here tonight representing Pulte Homes. I have two representatives of Pulte Homes with me this evening, Dave Compton and Robin Crawford. And the three of us comprise the Pulte team and are available to answer questions that you have. We do have a brief PowerPoint to provide an overview of our proposal, and Mr. Barker has been kind enough to assist me this evening in taking you through that proposal. I'd like to hit a few highlights and talk a little bit about what we're here tonight to seek to accomplish. So Todd, if you could get us rolling.
It's over there, Matt.
And I also provided, just for each one of the Plan Commission members, a hard copy as well, just so it's a little bit easier to see. The first slide you'll see is really provided to orient you with the property. It consists of two kind of slender rectangles north of Albert S. White and south of County Road 300 South, bisected by County Road 575E. And so kind of look at it as an eastern half and a western half that straddle County Road 575 is the best way to look at it. Go to the next slide. It's all right. May have thrown him. So the next slide, you'll see our concept plan, which lays out the proposed land uses in each one of those two halves, if you will. Starting on the eastern half, which is on the right side as you're looking at it, is a mixture of single-family housing varieties. We propose to locate both 52-foot wide homes as well, 52-foot wide lots as well as 70-foot lots. The 70-foot lots are shown in kind of the yellow up in the northeast corner. The lighter yellow in the southern section are the 52-foot wide. And then the orange section is our duplex or paired ranch type housing variety. Then you'll see down in the southwest corner at the northeast intersection of Albert S. White and 575, we have approximately 9-acre, what we're referring to as a neighborhood commercial component to the project, so that you could have a local coffee shop, a salon, that type of land use to serve the surrounding homeowners, but not compete with the larger big box retailers in more commercial areas of the community. Then as you move to the western side of the development, you'll see in the southwest quadrant, there's a very substantial green area that's labeled as open space and a potential future park. You may have noticed in the staff report that there is a recommendation of approval with two commitment or condition requests, one of which I'll talk about a little later having to do with right-of-way. The second one had to do with requesting that Pulte continue their dialogue with the town about the use of that property for a public park. And those conversations are continuing. Whether it's officially a public park or not, it's intended to be green space, open space, either passive or active recreation. Could include some fields for athletic contests, things of that nature. And then the remainder, the balance of that the central and northwest section is additional single-family housing. Go to the next slide. Next slide shows some of the architectural, what we call a character exhibit, meaning that the homes built within the planned unit development would need to comply with the architectural standards that are both in writing in the PUD as well as consistent with the renderings that we provide. So you can see the home styles that we're proposing. Great deal of architectural detail as far as changes in building plane lines, changes in roof design, dormers, attractive entryway features, et cetera. Go to the next slide. This shows our duplex home variety as well. Complementary of the single-family detached style of homes, but also incorporating many of the same attractive architectural features for the community. You go to the next slide. Again, more representations of the duplexes. And if you go to the next slide, I want to talk about some of the specific development features for the proposal. We've worked very hard for the project to fit within the context that is present there today, which is, it's interesting in that these two land areas are really between industrial zoning that's kind of to the southwest that you can see when you look from 575 to the west, and existing single family development to the east, specifically Walker Farms. And so we've worked hard to make this project a good neighbor to Walker Farms in particular. This shows a vantage point looking from within Walker Farms back west towards our project. And what we're proposing to do is to have a 15-foot buffer yard or strip that goes along the back of our lots where they adjoin homes within Walker Farms. And then within that 15-foot strip, we would have 6-foot spruce trees that are planted at a 15-foot separation on center. So our idea is to protect the privacy of really both sets of neighbors, the neighbors in the Peabody Farms project as well as Walker Farms. Now, the intention is not to create a wall or a barrier between the two developments, in part because our project does include that very substantial open space and potentially even a public park. And our thought is that realistically, the two communities need to function together and in fact are connected together from a network of sidewalks, et cetera. And our thought is that kids that live in Walker Farms, for example, are going to want to go play with their friends in the new development and in the park and vice versa. And so we want to be respectful of privacy without building a wall between each other. If you go to the next slide. This next slide is a representation we decided to include in the project that represents the east side of County Road 575E. One of the advantages, I will say, or principal achievements of this development and its kind of master planning approach is that the right-of-way for the future expansion of County Road 575E is all being taken on the east side of County Road 575. So it's all being taken from the land that makes up the Peabody Farms property. So there's no additional right-of-way that would be acquired on the western side, at least as part of the improvements to County Road 575E. So you hold that right-of-way line on the west side and widen it on the east side. And that's important for a couple of respects. One is that the 2020 thoroughfare plan for the town calls for County Road 575 to be a major arterial, which is a north-south roadway for regional transportation benefits, moving people throughout the community. And so by having a single project that straddles 575E for that large expanse and contributes that right of way, makes it possible really to fulfill a very significant goal within the transportation plan on a fairly expedited basis. And so we think that's a very attractive feature of the project. I'll come back to that in closing, but it also means that it gives us the opportunity to create an attractive buffer between County Road 575 and the roadway itself. And so what this depicts is the mounding and landscaping treatment that can occur east of 575 to screen the homes from that major arterial that'll be constructed at some point in the future. And so that's what that particular slide represents. And then I'll close with this last couple of pictures. The last slide in my PowerPoint is kind of a return to where we started, which is the concept plan. The second condition of the staff's recommendation for approval was agreement being reached on precise commitment language, which I believe each of you has been provided by staff regarding the future dedication of right-of-way for County Road 575. And we have reached agreement with regard to that language, both with respect to the current owner of this property and Pulte. And so that language satisfies that requested condition of the recommendation of approval. Let me just close kind of with one additional thought. We thought the staff report did an excellent job of discussing how this proposal fits within the comprehensive land use plan. One of the things that I wanted to provide for you to help illustrate that is the depiction of what's called Development Area 7, which doesn't mean a whole lot in and of itself, except that Development Area 7 is very nearly coterminous with the Peabody Farm property. It occupies probably 75% of the total land area. And one of the principal objectives of that development plan area was to provide for transitional land uses between the planned industrial to the west and the existing residential to the east. And it suggests ways that that might be accomplished. One of which was to contain the right kind of single family land uses. We think exactly like what we're proposing here with the varied lot sizes and the varying varieties of homes being proposed, together with some neighborhood commercial in a very localized area right at the northeast corner of Albert S. White and 575. And then also providing, where appropriate, additional open space. And this project provides that as well in the southwest corner of the project. And so we think that it provides that envisioned transitional land use that was articulated in Development Plan 7 as part of your comprehensive plan. And we think the staff's treatment of that in the report was very well received and appropriate in this case, and certainly something we've strived to hit in our preparation for tonight. For those reasons, we'd respectfully ask your support tonight in a recommendation of approval for the project. We are at the zoning stage. Obviously, we'll have additional work to do as we go through platting and development plan approvals, which we look forward to doing. And my team and I are available to answer any questions that you have. Thank you.
Thank you. Staff report.
The applicant is proposing to rezone approximately 593 acres from the general agricultural zone to the Peabody PUD. The Peabody PUD proposes a maximum of 660 dwelling units composed of detached and attached single-family homes. There's also an area at the intersection of Albert S. White and County Road 575 that is proposed for neighborhood commercial uses, and an area at the same intersection recommended for a future park or common area. Architectural standards are included for the proposed structure types, and development standards refer to the Unified Development Ordinance when appropriate. The proposed planned unit development zone is in compliance with goals and objectives of the comprehensive plan, including promoting continued development of quality residential product and encouraging larger planned unit developments to include flexible integration of a true mix of uses and unique design standards. Staff is providing a favorable recommendation for docket PC 21-029-ZA to rezone the described area from AG zone to PUD zone district. Staff finds the proposed rezone is in compliance with the comprehensive plan, is appropriate given the current conditions and character, proposed the most desirable uses for the area, conserves property values, and demonstrates responsible development and growth. If Plan Commission gives a favorable recommendation to Town Council, staff recommends adding commitments to the rezone that the applicant will continue to have conversations with the Parks Department regarding the potential park dedication and agree to the conditional language as provided for the Public Works Department.
Thank you. I do see a number of folks here, and we have a couple who have signed up to speak on this item. I'll note that our rules call for 20 minutes for this period of time. So if you've not signed up, we tend to let folks come, but just realize we do have that time constraint. Before getting to those.
20 minutes total or
Yes.
20 minutes per
20 minutes total,
Our rules call for 20 minutes time from.
Total for the-
Public discussion.
public discussion.
So before we get to one who's signed up, we also received 2 messages that I'll read here. I don't believe everybody has these, so I'll just read them. First, received by Brittany, and on Wednesday, Ron and Cheryl, is it Yankee, I believe, at 3766 Dusty Sands Road in Whitestown, are both opposed to the zone change to be discussed at the January 12th meeting. That's the end of the message. And then another today, also, I'm sorry, what day is today? Another on the 12th, excuse me. As owners of property that will adjoin the proposed subdivision on 575 East, we'd like to know how our property will be buffered from the subdivision. We do not want people or pets trespassing onto our property. When we purchased our property in 2017, one of the main reasons is because of our backyard view. Our backyard has a very park-like setting that we've enjoyed during our time here. With the proposed subdivision, that view will be considerably diminished. We would rather not see a housing subdivision out our kitchen window. So our question goes back to, what are you going to do to buffer our property from the new subdivision? I'm sure many of our neighbors feel the same way. Sincerely, David and Kathleen, I believe it's Piquel. And then there was a Ken Newell. Mr. Newell, if you're here, if you'd come, state your name and address for us, and we'd like to hear from you.
Yes, good evening. My name is Ken Newell, and I live at 609 West Pierce Street. For reference, I've colored in my property on this piece that was just passed to me. My primary concern is this large red arrow that shows the current drainage. I believe all of you have a copy of this. That shows the current drainage, where we receive a lot of water and a lot of seasonal flooding from this property. I just received this just as this meeting was started, and I wanted to kind of cover the fact that I reached out originally on the 30th of July to Matt Price and attempted to make contact with Pulte, and that continued up until the 6th of October. After that, I received David Compton's information, and we actually had a meeting with him as well as a couple of my neighbors on the 27th. And that also brought Robin Crawford into the conversation. After that, I heard no follow-up until the 13th of December when there was a meeting from Pulte. I was unable to attend. There were a lot of neighbors that were kind of frustrated by this meeting as it was held in Indianapolis and with relatively short notice. I did attend the 12/21 meeting and did voice my concerns again about the drainage situation, about potential damage to the tree line along the property, and also about fencing to keep trespassers away. Since then, I was told I would receive this information ahead of this meeting tonight. Technically, I suppose that was met by a few minutes. But my concern here is that I've been reaching out for just about 2 weeks shy of 6 months, and this is the first thing that I've seen that at least shows a basic drawing. If you look at the topographic map here, the rise between my property and the retention pond that's proposed to hold all this water is about 5 to 6 feet between the two, and there is a pipeline there with an easement through the entire development. That easement, to my understanding, is going to be difficult to tunnel under, go around, go over. So I'm left wondering how water is going to move from the northeast corner of this development into that proposed drainage pond. There's nothing that I see here that shows me a reasonable solution to this problem. And so I'm going to ask that the commission either stay this meeting for another month while more details are worked out. I understand this is early in the process, but this is a paramount concern to me as well as many of my neighbors. And we don't have anything actionable yet. This is the first that we've seen, I say we, I mean me, in just the last couple minutes. I'm not opposed to this development in its entirety. I'm not trying to be a problem. I just want to make sure that we get at a minimum notes on the commitment going forward that these things are going to be addressed. Because at this time, I've had a lot of verbal, yes, you're going to receive information kind of messages, and I've not received that. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir, if you'd like to speak, we do have a little more time. If you'd share your name and address, please.
My name is James Cunningham, 605 West Pierce. I'm sorry I got here a couple minutes late and didn't sign in. Well, but anyway, I wanted to address the same things my neighbor did, Ken, and some other issues that I have had when they put in Section 6 of Walker Farms. Okay, that didn't go very well. We had to get my wife's brother involved, an attorney. They went across our property lines, took down our trees, and damaged a lot of our trees that were on our property, and they've since died. Okay, I have 1,200 feet on my south border with Section 6 Walker Farm. Okay, they built the houses 45 foot from my property line. Okay, now here's what I have to do. Every time one of those people back on Green Street or whatever it is has a tree or tree limb fall in their yard, they call me and make me come clean it up. And when we were involved in the litigation with Steve Cook and Beezer Homes, I stated, you know, I don't want to be responsible if you build houses 45 foot from my 80 and 90 foot trees. Okay, it has cost me a lot of money to handle this. I have taken out over 500 dead trees on my 9 acres of property. Okay, and as far as trespassing, okay, when Section 6 was finished, I put metal, no trespassing signs, every 100 feet. They were tore down in 3 days by residents of Walker Farms, probably the kids. I put them back up. They lasted a week. Last time I put them up, they got them all but one all the way at the end, down by the pipeline easement. And by the way, the pipeline easement is only about 2 foot underground in that field area. Okay, I don't know if you people understand high pressure gas pipelines, which is an 8-inch gasoline pressure line at about 500 pounds of pressure. Okay, now there's a lot of places where it's below minimum depth through Walker Farm. Okay, I have complained to BP about it. I think it's an unsafe condition, and I think it should be addressed with any development of the property. It goes across the farm field of the Peabody property. I think that the public should know what the depth of this pipeline is, because I don't know if anybody has ever seen a pipeline explode. It's not good. Okay, I have, like I said, I'm not going to deal with taking care of trees in people's yards that built their houses too close to me. Okay, I've spent a fortune dealing with this. So that's where I'm at. And also, by this subdivision coming in, okay, that is going to trap me in the 23-acre woods. Okay, we have Walker Farms on the east side where the 2.5-acre property owner is. Okay, I'm on the southwest side. I have 9 acres, and the Newells are on the northwest side with about 11 acres. Anyway, there's just no way possible for my wife, who's disabled, for us to get out if we have a storm come through. Now, Ken can tell you about every storm we have come through, we have at least 2 or 3 trees, sometimes 6 go down. A lot of times they go down over the driveway. We're trapped. Okay, Now, I've been able to, with a four-wheel drive, there's a logging road that goes from my property right here. Okay, that logging road is the only access I have to get out of my property. Now, going through the field, going through the BP right of way, and going into Walker Farm. Okay, so if that exit is closed, I have no way to get out, especially in a natural disaster. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Matt, I have two requests to speak.
Okay.
Kevin Young, I don't know if he's present. Yeah. I beg your pardon?
You Brittany?
I'm Jill.
Oh, Jill, okay. I wasn't sure. Kevin Young, I live at 3806 Dusty Sands Road. Moved to Fishers, Indiana in 1992 when there were 7,000 people. I left in 2016 when there were 80,000 plus to move to Walker Farm in Whitestown. And I know this is going to be built, development's inevitable, and I've been in contact with Pulte and with Brittany, and everyone's been very transparent. My main concern is there are about 30 of us homeowners that will butt right up to that property. We don't have a pond or woods or things like that. And the development is going to be huge in terms of the impact on us. You know, we have the 5-foot no lots on each side. I have a 30-foot backyard. I can cut my grass in less than 10 minutes. I sent pictures of our beautiful sunsets in the west, and I know that's going away. But I'd like to see a little more done with the barrier and maybe a berm there. For us, that's huge to go from, from here to that wall is about my backyard to then have somebody 10 feet on the other side. When the people that buy these homes, you can see their backyards butt up to each other. They know what they're getting into. They know that, my neighbor behind me is going to be 10 feet away. It's interesting when you look at all these homes in Walker Farms and their backyards, there's lots of space. So for those of us on the west side who, like when I moved here in 2016 and it was, mixed use, open recreation space, I was excited. I didn't mind being hemmed in on the sides and having a small backyard because I had that beautiful view. So my ask is that, and I've contacted Robin at Pulte, is that a 15-foot berm with 6-foot spruces every 15 feet, that doesn't do a lot. There's got to be a way they can, I don't think, even with 15 feet, that's here to that wall, a little 4 or 5 foot berm, something with then trees on that, something to cut that view for us. Again, I don't know the size of houses you guys have, but for those of us 30 homeowners or so that butt right up against that, I mean, that's a big change. And again, like I said, we moved here in 2016. We plan to be here. We're not like a lot of our neighbors in Whitestown who don't plan to be here long. Their kids get to a certain age and they want to be in a different school district in Lebanon or a lot of rental homes. This was going to be our place. We got another 6 or 7 years before we retire, and it's a big change. And I've asked them if they would do something more on that transition. And I don't know if you guys can, I saw that in there, it's only got the 6-foot trees and a little bit of space, but I don't know if you guys can, make them or require that, hey, we like the plan, but we're recommending that you do this for the homeowners. That would be huge, more to my wife than me. I mean, really, when she saw or heard, we got the letter, it devastated her. I mean, she loves that backyard. So if there's any way to do a little more on that transition, I understand any development, there's a cost to it and there's a bottom line and profitability, but there's only about 30 homes there that are going to be really impacted so much by that lack of distance. If there's anything that you guys can do to hold Pulte accountable, it would be much appreciated. All right, thanks.
Thank you. Are there other requests to speak?
Yes, I have one on Zoom. Melissa Malacott.
Hi, thank you. you for taking the time to allow me to share my feelings. My name is Melissa Malacott. My family and I have lived at 3956 South, 575 East, which is right on the corner of Albert S. White and 575. Pardon me. The reason I'm not there tonight in person is because we're all sick. So anyway, we've lived here for the last 8 years. We've witnessed construction of a new bridge, a warehouse to the west of us, and another one to the south of us. We're now looking at plans tonight, which include a commercial development to our east, a public park to our north. Otherwise, like, I really have no complaints. I realize that the development of the park and the commercial area are not likely to happen right away. That's something that's like down the road. But I would like to go ahead and share a couple of my thoughts on that since we're talking about it this evening. My first concern is really the biggest, and I know some of my neighbors have already kind of spoke on this, the flooding. So we've had significant amount of flooding. The field along the east side of 575 often drains into our front yard with water going completely over the road or through the drain pipe that's under 575. I see town employees working to clean out the drain on that corner, but I feel the issue seems to be larger than just a clogged drain. The way the field is cut appears to be a huge part of the problem, and the drain isn't adequately moving the water out of the field, even when the drain's cleaned out. So when road improvements were made a few years ago, there was a pipe installed under 575, which leads water now directly into our front yard with nowhere to drain but through our property. We were told this pipe would direct the water to the creek by diverting it along the south side of our property near the bridge. It does not do that. Once this drain was placed, the flooding in our front yard increased, and we now have areas of erosion and large trees with exposed roots. I do have photos and videos and such, but I, for the sake of time, I'll continue on, but I can share those with you later. We have had conversations about the drainage with Mr. Smith, who's the current farmer of the Peabody property, Ken, the county surveyor, previously Dax Norton. I spoke with a town employee who told me that someone would be back out to shoot the area and see what's happening with the drain. Nothing has changed. Recently, we had the opportunity to speak with Dave Compton with Holt, which I really appreciated the meeting and the conversation. He verbally assured us that some of our neighbors that the field drainage would be addressed with this new development. Well, I want to trust that this will happen. I've been promised action in the past by others with no change. So I would really like to know that there will be accountability and a firm plan regarding the drainage issue affecting my family's property. Unlike the gentleman that spoke earlier, we have not received anything except a verbal promise. So I would like for that to be addressed, please. My second concern has to do with the eventual commercial development. I don't think there are any firm plans for this as of right now, but I would like to see the entrance placed away from our driveway if possible once it comes to those discussions. This is, as has been done with other nearby residential areas, I would ask that the developer include some sort of visual buffer, maybe evergreen trees or something to take away from the fact that we will now be looking out into a parking lot. And then lastly, regarding the future town park to our north, once more information is known, I would really like to know it be directly adjacent to our property or more so behind where the white farmhouse sits now. Will the plan include a road to be built next to our property to lead into the park? If so, will there be any sort of visual noise buffer considered? Excuse me. What will the hours be for the park? Again, these last two concerns may be topics to discuss again at a later date, but I appreciate you hearing them tonight. And thank you for your time and for the opportunity to speak on behalf of my family.
Thank you. Thank you for making the Zoom work too. We have about 2 minutes left. If you'd like to speak. Great. Start with your name and address, please.
I'm Sarah Shelton, 5565 East, 300 South. I'm the small
Come a
rectangular.
little closer to the microphone so they can hear you there.
Okay. Yep. I'm the small rectangular cutout in the middle of their west section off of 300. The 15-foot buffer and tree landscaping issues were discussed relative to Walker Farms. And I'd like confirmation on what is the plan for the buffering around my property. I can't talk. The development is on actually 3 sides of my property, with the front being right against 300. So some clarification on that would be great. And also, like some of the other people, some concerns about trespass, privacy, that sort of thing, because I will have livestock in the back. So how that's going to be addressed. And that's it.
Thank you. Brings our allotted 20 minutes to a close. We can allow for more if we'd like. If there are additional speakers that were asked to, and if the board would like to entertain that. Not seeing anybody jump at that, so then we will close.
Is there anybody out there who still wants to speak? Okay.
So we'll close that portion of the public discussion. And petitioner, you do have some time. Our rules call for 5 minutes. We do have, I see several notes. We'll have plenty of questions for you too, but if you're able to address some of these things that are brought up, we appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. President. And first of all, I want to say thank you to each one of the comments. We sent out over 300 notices for this project. I think we had 5 folks comment. And I think that's in large measure because we had 2 community meetings leading up to this public hearing tonight. And Robin Crawford's been leading our efforts at disseminating information as we received responses from received various questions from approximately 40 homeowners. So we've worked very hard to be responsive. With regard to, let me just hit a few of the highlights, maybe speaking about drainage first and meeting with the Newells. First of all, just before Christmas, had a chance to briefly meet with the Newells and enjoyed our conversation very much. And also appreciated the comment about being generally supportive of the land use, knowing what their neighbor is going to be and knowing that it's an attractive neighbor. Having said that, we also are respectful of their concerns about drainage. One of the things that we've tried to emphasize is that while we have done preliminary and important studies to evaluate the elevations on the property and the way the water flows, so we haven't laid this out without being mindful of the way the water is flowing on the property today. We do not have a final drainage plan. That's something that comes once you've moved past zoning or into the development plan and platting process. And so being able to provide the exact kind of design specifications for that drainage plan is something that would need to come later. But you can be confident that those items will be addressed because of the very exacting drainage standards that are applicable here in Whitestown, and will include review and approval by the county surveyor, who's going to have a seat at the table and going to have their professional design engineer, Christopher Burke, which is kind of the state's, Danny may disagree with me about this, one of the leading engineering firms, certainly with regard to drainage. And so this project provides that opportunity to provide some structure around drainage today, which is basically left to no structure at all. It's just following the contours of the property. This project will improve that drainage and will do so pursuant to an approved drainage plan. And so getting approved for zoning is what really provides that launching pad to do just that. With regard to the, let me pick up a couple of Melissa Malacott's comments. I believe we also met with her right before Christmas at our second neighborhood meeting. And her concerns were about drainage as well, principally. And again, I'd repeat my comments with regard to that. She also made a comment about the commercial piece and that being a future concept. And that is true. There are not immediate plans for the specific types of commercial users which will go in there. What you can be confident of tonight, though, is that there are exacting specifications to say that from a size and scale standpoint, it has to be in the nature of neighborhood commercial. There's no building can be over 10,000 square feet. There are landscaping requirements around the perimeter of that property, the commercial property, so that will aid with the concern over aesthetics. And importantly, we have borrowed the architectural design criteria from a like project that has attractive neighborhood commercial uses near 161st and Hazeldale, an area that's surrounded by high quality residential development and provides the hair salon, the coffee shop, the local diner type use that is frequented by the surrounding homeowners. And so it's that type of specificity that's in the PUD that will allow, I think, some additional comfort for her. With regard to Mr. Young and his comments about the buffer between the adjoining lots on the east side of the development, so the line between Walker Farms and our community, again, what we've tried to do there is create something that is compatible but not a barrier. And one of the things I would note on that is that the UDO applicable in Whitestown does not require screening between residential uses. We realize this is a PUD, and the aim of the PUD is to strive higher than the baseline requirements, and we believe we've done that with our proposed landscaping and the buffer strip. And if you indulge me just for one other, maybe 30 more seconds, there was a comment about the buffering between the homes that are on the west side of County Road 575E and our development, due to maintaining the right-of-way line on the west side and expanding expanding 575 to the east. There's a substantial green space between the back of those homes on the west side of County Road 575 and our development, some 150 feet in total. And so those properties are separated by a substantial green space area between the backs of their homes and the individual lots that are within our development. We realize that you all have questions as well and be happy to answer those. I've done my best to kind of hit the highlights, many of which would hopefully be taken care of as part of a development plan review process. Thank you.
Thank you. This time then we'll close the public hearing and open for questions, comments, and discussion from the commission. And thank you for staying.
Absolutely.
You did hit on several of those things. One of the questions that came to mind for me as you were talking about that buffer, and as I look at your illustration here, I see some of the, and again, I do realize this is not development plan, but I see a similar kind of illustration proximate to the western homes on 575. Are you indicating that in addition to that 100 and some feet, which I also see illustrated here, that you also intend, at least for the sake of this discussion today, to include the similar plantings there as are indicated for the eastern border near Walker Farms? It's a lot of words to ask what I could point to you much more easily if we were looking.
I think what you're referring to is, so on the west side, so we've got this line of homes on the west side of 575. And then this is this area that's in kind of the light brown is the 150 foot area. And then we also are showing some landscaping in the rear of those homes as well.
In addition to the distance.
In addition to the distance, yes, sir.
And I think it's worth noting, especially to those who are here, your point is well taken. We're not to the development plan stage. We're not looking at that level of detail, but in PUD, we'd expect certain amounts of things to hold there as well. So they are worth talking about, I think.
We've heard quite a bit about drainage. So as far as I understand, what you're saying is, you don't come with a full-fledged drainage plan until you get this moving forward and you don't spend the money on it. But can we see one before it comes back to plan? I mean, so, if it were to get, and so just so we're clear, everyone in here is clear on what happens tonight. The Plan Commission makes a recommendation or not a recommendation for the rezone, and then the council has the ultimate say in that. So that's another opportunity for you to go to a council meeting and speak. So just to be clear on that. But if it moves forward, before it comes back before Plan Commission to do the rest of what we have to do, the concept and development, at what point does the drainage plan get completed? Because I mean, the drainage is a big deal, right? I mean, it's something that that's pretty important. And so what point does that get done before it comes back before Plan Commission again?
Yes, it's an excellent question. So let me answer your first question very directly. So there will be an engineered drainage plan as part of the development plan and platting process. So when this would come back to you to be docketed, there would have to be at that point a submitted plan, a reviewed plan, and one that staff was in a position to support at that point before it could move forward. And if we did not have that drainage plan completed and to the staff's satisfaction at that point, then that process would not go forward. We would be continued until we had arrived at the correct drainage plan. The one thing I did want to emphasize, because in representing Pulte and Dave Compton, who's sitting behind me now, one of the things that Dave has always impressed upon me is that the layout of the subdivision and the location of those retention facilities that you see on that plan, that is the product of studying the land. So this concept plan that you see before you is not made up in that sense. It is built upon the diligence that they've already done to approximate with a great deal of certainty the location of those detention and retention facilities. Then he builds upon that with the actual drainage calculations and precise specifications as far as so you can actually see the depth of the intake. You can have an expert test the calculations, et cetera.
One key component of that drainage plan, and maybe since you've mentioned that, what you just have now, one key component, as I look at these drawings that are in here, is going under, around, you can't go through the pipeline. What experience or detail can you give at this point about such an arrangement? Being cognizant of not only the danger, but the interruption of service and the extraordinary cost that disrupting that pipeline would.
There's been some discussion of that. Dave, you want to speak to that? Did you hear him okay?
For the record, David Compton, Vice President, Land Acquisition, Pulte Homes. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. As Matt, I'm just going to digress for 2 seconds and talk about the lakes. The first thing we do is take what's called a LiDAR that shows us the topography, and then our engineers at HWC lay in the lakes. There's actually 9 lakes within this development. After we develop, 80 to 85% of the water, Sarah, that's coming off of the property today will be captured in those lakes and reduced at a slower rate than what is allowed today as farmland. So the neighbors that have spoke today will see a substantially less amount of water at any given time. In relation to the pipeline, that's an area we're still studying. I talked to our engineer as late as tonight on that. We put the lake where we believe it can go. He studied the topography of the area. We're absolutely going to have to get down and core that, do corings with the permission of the pipeline. We get down and it's called potholing. And that allows us to go down on that pipeline and figure out exactly how deep it is all the way through there. That'll help us finalize the design of what works up in that corner. Is the lake in the right spot? Are the lots in the right spot? In a worst case scenario, Matt, that may end up being a park, because if we can't drain underneath that pipeline, we're not allowed to continue to drain off-site. Today, there's actually, I'm going to cheat a little bit here. There's about 17 and a half acres that drain to the north and drain to the east in that area. So we're not, after we're developed, allowed, we've got to capture all that water on our property, put it in a pond, and then push it to the south. So this is one of the things that gets developed when we come back in the concept plan. We'll have potholed down on that pipeline. We'll know exactly where its depth is. We'll then go out and complete the topography to spot check the elevations in the area, so that when we put a pond there, we need to make sure that we can get water from that corner out in that area. Sorry for the detailed explanation, but I felt like it would help.
Thank you. I think it's not only helpful for us, but it's useful so the public can realize that what you see in front of you is not to the degree that we're talking, again, that we've noticed before about development, that there are all these steps that you all need to take to make sure that we can ensure that drainage is appropriately dealt with, things like that, before we get to that stage of actually approving what hits the ground.
Yes, sir. That is absolutely correct.
I have a question about the open space.
Yep.
What happens if talks with the town break down and it doesn't become open space? I mean, then it can just become anything that's in the PUD, right? Technically. So I guess what I'm asking is, based on how this is presented, is there a way that we can say, if that doesn't become a park, then we as a plan commission have a right to look at that portion and be able to zone that, how we be able to take a look at the zoning of just that portion, so it doesn't necessarily come back and say, well, in the PUD, technically it says this could be a commercial property, and that's not what it was intended to be. But if talks break down, then I don't want us to be stuck in a position where we have to do something that we don't want to do.
I'm going to take part of it and let Matt, technical on the zoning side. I'll handle the land use side. It's actually Sarah in floodplain. So,
yeah, you did mention that.
Yeah,
during
but
the
it's okay.
meeting.
Boone County is very strict, and Danny's shaking his head up and down on filling that floodplain. It may be, is it up to 2-to-1 now?
I believe it's 3-to-1.
3-to-1. So if I fill an acre of floodplain, I have to create 3 more acres of floodplain storage area. So that's going to become, I can say open area. I kind of came up with the idea and approached the Parks Department, Sarah, based upon a park that's at 106 in Cumberland Road in Fishers. They've got some soccer fields in that area. That's a great soccer complex for the town. My daughter played there many years ago. And there's, maybe a couple of days a year they can't play soccer, but the bathrooms and everything else are elevated outside the floodplain. But soccer is a great use in that area, lacrosse. So we're talking to the town. If the town doesn't want it, then we'll probably create still some open field area there. I'm not sure, part of it might even stay agricultural. I don't want to mow that size of an area for the homeowners association and create that type of burden on them. So it will stay open space. It's a question of whether it's park and recreation that's privately maintained, or that sort of thing. Does that help answer? And then Matt, I guess.
Yeah, and that sounds like language that could be incorporated into a commitment. Is that what I think I'm hearing? Okay.
I think so. And I think staff, when we were going through some of the various revisions to the PUD, asked us to actually label that as open space or future park, with the idea being that if the park concept didn't work out, we would still be tied to the concept plan that's represented in the PUD. And if we want to make that an additional commitment here tonight, that's acceptable too. I think it's a fine idea.
As far as the commercial property in the PUD, and I don't have it here in front of me, I assume it's fairly specific in what you can use what you can put there.
Yes, I believe the uses are the MU core uses and a couple other ones. So it is limited to the type of use.
Right. We provided for co-working space in addition to what's permitted in the MU core, but primarily what we're limited by is the scale. The scale of the land uses is substantially restricted so that it is a neighborhood type feel. It needs to be compatible with those homes that exist today, and it also needs to be compatible with this neighborhood. And so we think in that sense, we've achieved a good balance, and it should serve as an amenity really for the homeowners.
Mr. Young is a neighbor of mine a few houses down. I live on property that backs right up to this. And so, I mean, obviously I love it. It's beautiful. I'm fortunate for 11 years that it's remained how it has. And I as well saw where in the comprehensive plan, at the time was hopefully going to be green space. I know that hasn't worked out, and the Peabodys have a right to, sell their property. But, his concern about having, and it's my concern, obviously. I mean, we've had a beautiful backyard. It's going to look completely different. What is the option as far as, I personally am not a huge fan of a big berm, but I do know just from talking with other neighbors that is something that they would at least like to have addressed. I mean, the possibility of having something a little taller there to kind of block those houses from the view. And I guess I know you said that's kind of not what you want to do, but is it an impossibility to do it from a topography standpoint, or is it just you're just not wanting that to be the case? You're wanting it to remain more open?
I think I appreciate the way you phrase that, because I think it's a very fair question. We are wanting to keep that open in some ways because we do not, as I mentioned before, our vision is that we don't wall off one development from another, but at the same time be respectful of privacy. And we are somewhat restricted by space. One of the benefits of this project and being able to take these two large land areas that are on east and west of 575 is that it gives you the opportunity to dedicate that right of way, which is about 14 acres of land all on the east side. And so the possibility just from a dimensional standpoint of being able to locate a berm in addition to that on the backs of those homes is really not a feasible alternative. And that's why we came up with the idea of the buffer strip with the additional plantings. Tried to make the best of that and be, I think, somewhat sensitive to, definitely the privacy side, but understanding that there is going to be some coexistence between those two neighborhoods, just out of the desires of the property owners on both sides of the line.
I know there are always concerns about sound and traffic and all of that. I mean, and when people come in and do work, I mean, they are supposed to be following the town's ordinance. I know that doesn't always happen, but if it doesn't happen, then you need to reach out to the town. Dave Taylor, I think still, right? And let them know, Dave. I haven't said hi to you yet tonight. And let them know, correct?
Yes.
That's always a typical thing that comes up sometimes, so.
Understood. I think that was a topic that we addressed at least one neighborhood meeting, maybe the second one as well. And so we're sensitive to that issue and tend to be good neighbors in the process.
Are there any other questions? Any other discussion among the commission? I know a lot of what we discuss here really is about what is the development going to look like. It is about a lot of the details, and yes, down the road the devil will be in those details. I feel pretty good about the use in that request. I don't live there anymore. My backyard is in a different place now. It does seem like a natural connection, and in particular that green space potential future park seems like a very nice and wise transition is the language in the comprehensive plan. to what we see there, going further west on Albertus White. I think that's a nice feature of what we've seen today.
I'd like to add too, just with Matt, with the thoroughfare plan, how this complies with it. I mean, typically when development comes in, they dedicate half road right away. So this was split between two parcels, but just because of the limitations with the housing on the west side of 575, we can't encumber any more right away going west. So this development takes that whole 110 foot from the center line to the east, puts that burden on the Peabody's property. And it also down here at the Albert S. White 575, just with the future roundabout, that's above and beyond what the normal road right away would be. So that's a big benefit for the town to have that.
I think it's again, I don't live there. I think that's a benefit also that we don't see a plan here asking people to give up their front yards.
It's a pretty backyard, though. I think I'll just go ahead and add, and I know the drainage plan has to be there before you come back to plan, but let's put it as a condition as well, if that's possible. I mean, that's not something you won't agree to because you just said it would have to anyway, but just so we know that that's in place before you come back before Plan Commission again.
Yeah, just so the record is clear, we are agreeable to that request.
Okay, thank you.
So that if there's to be a motion, we have some pretty specific language about the right-of-way commitment. There was language about continuing conversations, and then I believe I heard the petitioner would agree to, if those break down, we would commit to what is indicated here, remaining open space, and then a commitment about drainage. It's a lot to stay in a motion. I feel like I'm ready to do that. I don't usually make those motions. I'm happy to give it a shot unless you'd like to. Okay.
I'm fine with you doing this
So
one.
I would like to.
Just, Matt, just for the record, so we don't have to read all this language, I would just ask that we add this language into the minutes so that we just say the language that's in front of us on proposed PC 21-020-ZA Peabody property zoning commitment. We'll just put that into the minutes along with the exhibit, and then that you can shorthand as the right-of-way commitment in your motion.
All right. If there's anyone wondering what maybe the Cliff's Notes version of that is that the commitment asks for 2.1 acres of that right of way, essentially to facilitate, at the southern portion, essentially to facilitate the roundabout. Does that capture it in Cliff Notes?
Yep, that's correct. And
So-
it has a time limit on when that'll be dedicated, which is a benefit to the town.
All right, thank you. Okay, so I would like to make a motion that the Plan Commission provide a favorable recommendation on this petition for rezone, to rezone from AG to Peabody Plan Unit Development in accordance with the exhibits, with the following conditions: that the applicant and Whitestown Parks Department continue conversations regarding potential park dedication to town ownership. Should that fail to materialize, that the petitioner would commit that otherwise that area would remain open space. The conditions mentioned earlier with regard to the right-of-way, and that a thorough and detailed plan, drainage plan would be presented next time that this item would come for development or for otherwise approval before this commission. That helpful enough motion? Does that capture what we need to on the commitment side?
I'm fine with that. Matt, do you have any changes to the drainage commitment? Or are you okay with that? Okay. That's fine with me.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? I'll call for a vote. All in favor signify with aye. Aye. All opposed? This motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
And again, just as Sarah mentioned to the public, the next step for those who aren't familiar with the process is this will now go to town council for their final decision on this packet.
We're allowed to take a stretch break. We've been at this for an hour and a
Of
quarter.
course,
All right.
let's take a brief recess.
We're going to take a brief recess. We will resume our meeting in roughly 5 minutes.
Just don't discuss any of the business before the planning commission during the recess.
Thank you.
I may have to call him. Straight that way. Yep. Oh, I know. Like, no. The next one's no, totally not.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Sure. Show me.
I know.
Yeah, give me a bigger map.
I know. I know. I have to remove my emotions from it. So.
I'm a visual. See if this
So what's Becca get back?
roughly a line here.
And then have an exact already.
I've actually texted with her a couple of times, just in general
Okay.
about how she's doing and feeling. She said she was having some anxiety, not about that, but just in general.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I should.
I will look into that. And their,
mean, it's good,
remind me
like-
their name.
Brought him in. Was very happy with that.
I will look into that. Thanks for letting me know.
So.
Sure.
Yeah, that was, I felt like.
Here, we got.
He had no notice. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. It's never easy.
You want to take?
No.
You want to take that?
It was easier.
It took a long time to get it, so.
Something about that first one though that makes it really hard. You're welcome. You're welcome. I figured that was an easy sentence to add.
I like
I'm
it.
sure it gets good. So,
But I know we had, when I first got here. I think I like it. I've set out. Can't do it.
yeah, no problem.
I can tell that it's very hard.
Yeah, I just love my backyard. When I was telling her, I'd have to remove your emotion from it and
They are.
ultimately do what's right for everybody. So, yeah, it'll be fine.
It's all right. I get it. It's big. It'll be worth it in the long run.
I'd say do your best.
A pond would be okay. Yeah. Yeah, so you might as well just put one there on purpose.
I know.
Yeah.
It makes them doesn't quit and go for like, no, just a little bit.
Ponds. Maybe, I mean, they may ultimately do that. At least they'll have.
Yeah.
And if they don't for some reason, make sure you tell us.
That's fine.
Yeah, before they come forward.
we
I
have-
mean, I know we have to have one. But I just thought we'll add it in there and then we'll make sure.
You look at, I don't even know who you are.
Thanks for coming. Oh,
I look at the
yeah.
here. I know people look up to them. Some happens to fall down. They never use them.
I think it was on the development. I know you saw the second one, it's past that new road, I don't foresee it being the first time it's
That's
ever.
the problem, yeah.
So I think it'll be more of a learning curve for the planning commission knowing what it is. I mean, you can touch on it.
We'll resume in about 2 minutes. We'll resume in 2 minutes.
That's the problem. And I've been in the other side.
Anything onto my property.
Yeah, but how long?
Onto my property without my permission, and I was like, hey, okay, I was okay with that. I was totally fine with it. I didn't complain.
You're no problem.
Thanks for helping me. Good neighbor. Yeah, thanks for being a good neighbor. Growls at me all the time. And then he put up some really nice. It's really pretty.
Oh, right there?
Yeah.
Steered your.
I rallied when he was younger.
Right at there.
Oh, yeah.
I know.
That does not exist there.
And not much in there. Yeah, we
None
built
of
it
this
there.
stuff.
Quickies.
Watch that. Yeah, we've been there longer than most of the people around us. You know, we've been there 11 years, so. Yeah. Yeah,
We loved our neighbors too.
Yes.
we've enjoyed it. We've had a lot of change in neighbors, but
Oh, have you?
yeah, it's kind of a transient. I mean,
We had a renter to the right and a renter across the street. That were the same people the whole time.
okay.
And then our right over here. And it was other school people behind us. Like we all kind of knew each other. It was a good group. Yeah. All right. We'll resume. Thank you all for the recess. I know we appreciated it. Next on our docket is PC 21-059 CP concept plan for West Park Logistics Center. Is the petitioner ready on this one?
Good evening. For the record, my name is Blair Carmesino, Becknell Industrial Offices at 2750 146th Street, Suite 200. You've seen this project before. It was previously called H&H Holdings. We've now since renamed it to West Park Logistics Center, but it is the same property. I'm going to buzz through. I did do a brief presentation. I'll buzz through the about us. I think you guys are familiar with Becknell, hopefully by now, since this project's been looming around for about 2 years. Next slide, if you would. Subject property is generally at the northeast corner of 475 and Whitestown Parkway. The property were originally started with about 64 acres of H&H property. Since then, and through the history of the project, we have worked with the town and have acquired 8 residential properties abut County Road 475. There's 8 properties, 7 owners that are now 100% under contract. We finally got the last 2 under contract. The H&H property has no improvements. The residential properties are, of course, improved with a single-family home, septic, and well, which we've inventoried. Property is partially encumbered by a regulated floodplain on the eastern side, also known as Eder Ditch, and the property, as stated, fronts Whitestown Parkway and 475. History, as I mentioned, this came in as H&H. After a couple of zoning petitions, we finally, I think, got final zoning of the property back in fall of 2021. We have since filed and prepared for TIF and tax abatements. Those were approved in December of 21. We have filed the conceptual plan that's before you tonight. In that filing, as you'll see, we identified the need for a variance for the loading burst face County Road 475. That petition has been filed and is docketed and will be heard February 3rd, which we look forward to present. And then lastly, the final step, as you know, is the development plan approval process. We intend to file that on February 3rd. Eder Creek, as you know, has the floodplain. We've been working with Boone County Surveyor. Our plans will demonstrate staying out of the floodway, but we will impact the floodplain, and we're working with the county surveyor for compensatory storage necessary on the park for that. On-site utilities will be coordinated with Whitestown Utility and the various gas and electric providers. There are some off-site improvements which the TIF will fund and bring utilities to the site. as well as one of the major issues with this project was full depth improvement of County Road 475. So the acquisition of the 8 properties will allow for that. And you will see improvements of County Road 475, full depth improvements from Whitestown Parkway to our northern property lines. Again, working with Department of Public Works on those plans. I'm buzzing through this really quick because you guys have seen this. So I think that is it. I do have a couple exhibits that show, yeah, I spoke to schedule, that show the current conceptual plan is filed, a more detailed conceptual plan that's in their packet. There's the site location map up. I'm assuming you're clicking as fast as you can. Zoning map. There's a rendering of the building, probably building 1, the northernmost building. There are 2 buildings on here. I'm faster than Todd, apparently. The 2 buildings planned, the northernmost is about a 736,000 square footer. The southern is a 182,000 square foot facility that'll meet market demands typical for the big box industrial, light industrial you see here. Last screen is a architectural rendering from southeast and northwest views. It's coming. So as it comes up, I'll take that opportunity to offer to answer any questions you may have. Hearing none, I will sit down and be quiet.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Staff report, please.
The applicant is proposing a concept plan composed of 2 light industrial buildings with associated vehicle and trailer parking. The sites in question are located at the intersection of County Road 475 and Whitestown Parkway and zoned I-1 light industry. The site in question was recently rezoned and commitments were made at that plan commission hearing regarding right-of-way and infrastructure. Loading berths are located on the west side of the northern building, and the applicant is seeking a variance from the Board of Zoning Appeals to allow this prior to the development plan phase. Staff is providing a favorable recommendation for the proposed concept plan, docket PC 21-059-CP.
Thank you. Is there anyone from the public that wishes to speak on this item? Anyone in the Zoom? Hearing none. Do you have any closing remarks for us? Thank you. We'll close the public hearing and open for questions and comment from the board. I do have a question for you. It looks to me like the items that are in front of us do not include, it looks like they box out 2 homes, perhaps those last 2 that you mentioned.
Yeah.
So when we get to development plan, I assume that we'll see that closed in. as well.
No, those 2 property owners, we identified when we came in with zoning as people that will absolutely not do anything. Money couldn't tip them.
I see. So when you say 7, you don't mean the entire road. You mean that's 7
We're
of
missing 2 in the middle.
I got you.
Yep.
Okay. And that's what's
There's
reflected.
10 properties, 10 lots there. 2 we did not get. We have 8 properties, 7 owners under contract.
Understood. Thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions or comment? Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve docket PC 21-059 CP concept plan West Side Logistics Center.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor indicate with aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Next is PC 21-061 concept plan and development plan for Park 130, Building 6. Is the petitioner ready?
Yes. Hello, I'm Liam Sawyer from Kimley Horn and Associates at 250 East 96th Street, Suite 580 in Indianapolis, Indiana. I'm here to present Park 130, Building 6 for both concept plan and development plan. I'll go through this pretty quickly. If we could go to the next slide, Todd. So Building 6 is the last building in the Park 130 development that's industrial use. It's a proposed 297, 639 square foot single load speculative warehouse on 15.79 acres. It has approximately 206 parking spaces And then all the drainage and detention and utilities, they were all master planned as part of the rest of Park 130 in the Building 5 project. Next slide will be a area map, just kind of showing where it's located. So as you can see, it's just to the west of Commerce Drive, which is currently being constructed. Park 130 Building 5 is on the east. There's existing detention to the south, Eder Ditch to the west, and Whitestown Parkway far to the south. If you go to the next slide, this is just a snippet of site plan. So it is a single load industrial warehouse with parking out front, extra drives on the north and south, and then again, the detention on the south that was master planned. And then the final slide, staff has recommended approval for both the concept and development plan. I just wanted to highlight that. And that's all we have tonight, but we'll be happy to answer any questions you have. Thank you.
Thank you. Staff?
The applicant is proposing to develop an approximate 300,000 square foot structure for light industrial use. The site is zoned I-1 Light Industry Zoning District. The site in question is located as part of the Park 130 development, which was recently approved for platting by the Plan Commission. The site in question is proposing vehicle, trailer, and bicycle parking. The landscaping and photometric plans meet the requirements of the UDO. Staff is providing a favorable recommendation for the proposed concept and development plan, dockets PC 21-060-CP and PC 21-061-DP. Staff finds the development plan is in compliance with all applicable development standards, manages traffic, and the applicable utilities have enough capacity to meet the needs of the proposed development.
Thank you. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak on this item? Any closing comments?
No, we'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you. Questions, comments, or discussion from the commission? Is there a motion?
I make a motion to approve PC 21-060-CP and PC 21-061-DP concept and development plans for Park 130, Building 6.
If I could just make a friendly request on that motion, for development plans, we're going to start doing some additional paperwork that you're going to see come through for those for the president to sign. So if we could just add to your motion, Jill read some specific findings. So if we could just add subject to the findings read by staff, that's fine. We don't need to reread those. If we just make that motion subject to those findings, that would be great.
So my motion is subject to the findings.
Second.
This motion is second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have item E, PC 21-062CP, the concept plan. Recall that the development plan is continued. So the concept plan only for all points Anson Building 10. Is the petitioner ready?
Yes. For the record, that I'm Michael Pierce at the American Structure Point, 9025 River Road, Indianapolis. I'm here tonight on behalf of our client, Browning Investment, for the request for approval for concept plans for all points in Anson Building 10. Next slide. Here you see a location map. The project site's located at the northwest corner of 575 East and 450 South, located on approximately 40 acres. This is within the Anson PUD. Here we have a concept site plan for the site. It's approximately 605,000 square foot industrial warehouse with loading docks on both sides of the building, as well as proposed truck parking on the west side and proposed potential future parking on the east side, should that be needed in the future. Employee parking on the north and south side with additional future parking available on both sides. We have a large detention pond along the east side of the property that'll outlet to the south along the property to the south that's also owned by Browning and eventually into Fishback Creek, which we've been working with the county surveyor on that outlet point. Access to the site will be via an extension of All Points Drive just to the west of the site. That'll connect down to 450, County Road 450. As you can see on here, we've left room for the planned future expansion of 575 along the west side, east side of the property, as well as the southeast corner where there's a proposed future roundabout. There is some floodplain on the northeast corner of the site that we're proposing to stay out of that so that we don't impact that with our development. Here you can see some color building elevations of the building, just to show that it's in general compliance with the characteristics of the other buildings in the area. Next slide, and this is something that'll be discussed in more detail during the development plan during the next meeting, but we thought it would be prudent to introduce it during this meeting, is that during our TAC comments that we received with city staff, based on the PUD ordinance for this site, the loading docks and the proposed future trailer parking on the east side of the building would be within 600 feet of a protected residential zone, which are the properties basically to the east of 575. As part of that, because those are within 600 feet, the PUD allows for, per section 19, a change to those development standards should they be approved by Plan Commission. And those would be approved based on the conditions that that it would not substantially affect the integrity of the development plan for the property. That 2, it would be appropriate for the site and its surroundings, and that 3, it would be compatible and consistent with the intent of the stated standards and development plan. Next slide. I provided a letter to city staff on January 10th stating that we would provide screening along the east side of the property so that both of the proposed future trailer parking, should that ever be built, as well as the proposed loading docks, would be 100% screened by a small berm, as well as a 6-foot solid wood fence and surrounding landscaping that would provide screening from 575 and those residential properties just to the east, which we felt would satisfy the requirements of those conditions of section 19 of the PUD, and would hopefully provide a favorable recommendation to get approval of those modifications to the standards. And like I said, I think that's something that will be discussed in more detail based on the development plans that we present in the future, but just something to be aware of at this concept stage. And then on the next slide, you can see the screening exhibit that we prepared showing the 3-foot berm that we'll have along the east side of our detention pond, as well as the 6-foot solid wood fence. And based on the sight lines from the existing center line of the road, that provides 100% screening of our building for the loading berths, as well as the potential future trailer parking. So with that, happy to answer any other questions. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Staff report.
The applicant is proposing to develop an approximate 600,000 square foot structure for light industrial use. The site is zoned Anson PUD and is included as part of the All Points at Anson development, located at the intersection of County Road 450 and County Road 575. The site in question is proposing vehicle and trailer parking stalls. Loading berths are located on both the east and west sides of the site. The applicant will be seeking future approval to allow loading berths on the east side of the site at the development plan phase per section 19. Staff is providing a favorable recommendation for the proposed concept plan, docket PC 21-062-CP.
Thank you. Is there any member of the public that would like to speak on this item? Do you have any closing remarks for us? Thank you. Close the public hearing. Are there any questions or comments from the commission?
Yeah, my question is, I mean, it's basically been addressed, but my only concern is just making sure that there's not bright lights shining into Walker Farms, that newer section. Because, I mean, I can see from where I live over here, I can easily see this warehouse over here. So, I mean, I know, I know how close it feels once they're up. And so I just want to make sure that, you know, there aren't lights shining in. And I think what I heard you say is you are going to have potentially loading docks on that side, but I don't want that to happen.
Yeah, so the lighting and photometric plan is addressed at the development plan stage.
Right.
And landscaping as well with the 100% screening will be part of the requirement of that.
Okay.
Anything else? Is there a motion?
Well, I will say one more thing. So is there anything from a road perspective that we would be interested in needing help or assistance with?
So as 575 as it sits today, we're not going to let them access 575 directly.
Okay.
They've asked to have a future cut on 575 once we improve it, which we're still working through those details. But it should be noted with their concept plan, they've left a sizable chunk of right of way for a roundabout that was proposed at 450 and 575.
Okay.
And so between this and building 11 to the south, that will have additional right of way for 575. But until we make those improvements, we're trying to limit the access on 575. And so part of the development plan will have All Points Drive, which will have the primary access. So the idea is all the warehouse traffic, the semis will access All Points Drive, then north up to Albert S. White, because 450 today and 575 is not designed to handle that kind of
Right.
traffic.
Okay. So it sounds like it is being discussed and worked through.
It is being discussed, and we're, you know, there's always going to be some traffic that does find its way at 575 and 450, but there is a plan long-term to fix it. But initially, you know, it's to use All Points Drive.
Good questions. Thank you. Anyone on this item?
I'll make a motion to approve PC 21-062-CP concept plan, All Points, Anson Building 10.
Second.
It's motion is second. Any further discussion? All in favor, signify aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. I think we're tired. Item G is the Whitestown Patch TIF 2022 Order of Plan Commission.
Mr. President, on behalf of Bose McKinney, who prepared the TIF resolution and the order, I'm happy to discuss these matters. I asked that we include with your materials in the future, you'll recall a few meetings ago that we actually give you the resolution from the Redevelopment Commission so you can see a little bit more detail. That's there. No need to take any action on that, but it is there to give you more detail on the project. Generally speaking, this project, the TIF is to provide for public infrastructure that'll be used both to serve the site and off-site. So it'll benefit other projects other than just this area. And the purpose of the order is for you to review it and determine whether the development that will be there as part of the TIF is in compliance with the plan for development of the town. And so that's what's before you. Happy to answer any questions if I can. Danny can provide a little bit more details on the location and what's going on, but there is an exhibit to the resolution that shows you generally where this particular TIF site is located.
Thank you for that additional information, for the extra exhibits. It was helpful for me.
You're welcome. And it has been approved by, as you can see in that resolution, has been approved by Redevelopment Commission.
Yes, thank you.
Some of the improvements that will be done with this TIF, there's significant road improvements to County Road 450. They're going to do a road section that matches Hanson Boulevard, which is the 3-lane section. So that'll carry up from Albert S. White up to their north property line. They will be doing signal improvements in a turn lane from Albert S. White. There'll be pedestrian crossings for this. There'll be a pedestrian bridge that crosses, it's a tributary of Fishback Creek. So that's pretty big to get a pedestrian crossing up there, along with a lift station and then a water main extension up to service site. So it's a lot of public infrastructure for a small, not small, but limited buildings.
Thank you for that detail. That's great. Thanks.
Just as a reminder for procedure, this is just an up or down vote on this one, not a recommendation to anyone. Just approve it or don't approve it.
Any more discussion, or is there a motion on approval of this item, this TIF order?
I'll make a motion to approve, or what's the correct motion, John?
That's correct. Motion to approve the order.
Motion to approve the Whitestown Patch TIF 2022 order of Plan Commission.
Second.
It's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. I believe that's 6-0.
That's one of the rare ones that'll take your signature, and we'll have staff attest to the signature since Vice President's not here.
Item H is the Plan Commission Rules and Procedures update.
So it's been a long meeting. I did mention these rules to you last time. If you have significant questions, I don't think there's any rush from staff that we need to right now approve them unless you guys really want them done. So that's up to you. If anyone has questions, we want to continue it, we can. If you're good with it or have questions for me, I'm here to answer, but I don't want to, it's been a long one. So the pleasure of the commission.
I did notice several changes. Those seem pretty straightforward, but perhaps the one worth noting the most for the record might be in the order of business that it removed the it has been a long meeting. Public comment on non-agenda items. So I don't quite know, but then there was this section about procedure for that. So I guess I'm trying to figure out how, so is that just, help me out with that.
Sure. So we have this on our agenda in part because it is something that is done at other meetings of the town. There's no requirement under Plan Commission rules that we have any procedure for comment not on the agenda. And so candidly, my initial recommendation to staff was let's just take it off entirely. The benefit of having it is people like to have a forum where they can speak. The detriment to having it before your meetings is a couple things. One, if we have something on the agenda and then it gets continued and people are here to speak, that can push our meeting out on things you're not even going to consider. There's a benefit to that too, because people are here and they want to speak. So I can go either way on it. And I'm not recommending what you do either way. But we recommended kind of limiting the amount of time and just being real clear about that, I think is what our final recommendation was. As I said, originally my comment was let's just eliminate it entirely. As you know, we have people come to speak to us about buildings that are existing in place and over which we have no authority to do. But it is a nice thing to let people have a forum to speak. So I can go either way on that.
So there's a procedure indicated for it, but not a location on the agenda.
Correct.
So we would offer it as folks would request it.
Correct. It would just be, I mean, it's included in the procedure that we can still allow the public comment. So you would, if you want to leave it on the agenda, you could. If you want to just take out my suggestion of removing it from the agenda, that's fine too. It's really just, it would make it up to your discretion to allow people to speak or not.
Does anyone here remember an occasion that anyone spoke on a non-agenda item on purpose?
Probably three or
I
four
can
times.
recall a couple
Yeah.
of times that people have come in speaking on non-agenda
A
items.
couple times,
I
not
mean,
much.
I can recall in particular a homeowner in the Legacy Corps complaining about certain things. That,
Yes, frustrated about local restaurants.
Yes. So yeah, we
do
have
remember
had
that.
them on occasion.
I mean, I don't know. I'm inclined to say that it's a courtesy to have it on there that if people, it is a public forum. And I would be inclined to say that we would just limit the amount of time that can be spent on it as opposed to completely eliminating it
I agree.
from the agenda.
Mhm.
I don't know.
So the
It's not
recommendation would
used
be
very
under,
often, but
It's
it's
not.
there for someone to
Yeah.
utilize it if they want to.
Yeah.
so just add that back in under agenda.
I don't know. What do you think, Matt?
Frankly, I can be of both minds about it, but I think ultimately we serve our public, and if we're not listening, it's worse to take out a time to listen than it is to add them. So I'd be happy to see it remain as well.
It's fine, we can make that change. So we're talking about page
For
the record, page 4, Article 5, Section 1, adding back in items not on the agenda, not list of order of business. I did notice one other typographical error on page 11. It says the WBZA adopts, and it should be the WPZ. That's just a holdover from us using the same language for both. Probably worth highlighting that section. The town council adopted during the pandemic a policy for using electronic means. We've been following that policy. The resolution does say that the board can decide whether they want to adopt the policy or not. And so it's been working for us. So it seems appropriate to just go ahead and make it official now that we're kind of out of that major wave. And it seems to be working.
since we're looking in that section, there's also spelling error.
Where's the spelling error?
Policy concerning,
In the heading,
the word concerning is misspelled.
fix that as well.
I'm not the person to ask about spelling, but that one's clear. So what's the pleasure of the commission? Would you like to vote on it with these edits? Would you like to continue and look at it next time with these edits? And anything else? Would you like? I am fine to move forward and consider approving them tonight. If someone would like to move on it again with these edits that we've discussed. I think the changes were helpful.
I don't have any issues with it.
Yeah, I'm okay moving forward.
Yeah.
Okay, is there a motion on these rules and procedures?
I make a motion to approve the Whitestown Plan Commission rules and procedures as presented at this evening's meeting.
And I will take that motion to include as amended with those typographical errors and adding back in items not on the agenda, correct? That's what you're saying.
Yes. The things that we discussed this evening.
Excellent.
Is that good enough?
No, that's great.
Okay.
That's how I understood the motion. I was just making sure.
Okay.
Second.
Motion is second. Further discussion? All in favor, signify with aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Do you have any announcements for us or any other business not indicated? Thank you. Then I believe we need a motion to adjourn.
I'll actually add one thing. There's a comprehensive plan open house this Thursday. So if you guys want to attend, take a look at what's been going on. 6:30 to 7:30, it'll be here.
Very good. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Have a good night.
50 minutes never felt so long.